Okay, what I'm gonna attempt to do here is some live research video. Because I'm alone at home today, I don't have anything else pressing to do. And I've just been getting way sucked into my research. So I don't have internet here, but I do have cell phone service. So I'm gonna see if this will work doing some live research off a hotspot on my phone. So it might be a little bumpy, but we'll see how it goes. So first of all, what I have on the screen here is the Ben Franklin Parkway. Not the satellite view, just the regular maps view. And you can see it runs northwest to southeast from the Schuylkill River down to City Hall at Broad Street. And up top, this whole thing's the Ben Franklin Parkway. Up top, you have the Art Museum and the Oval with the Washington Monument across the street, which is a very like uterus type of symbol, even like a cross. The whole thing's kind of like an Egyptian ankh. And then it goes down in this pointer shape, the Ben Franklin Parkway. It all points down into Philadelphia City Hall, right? And something I want to show is it looks like it's funneling the energy basically from the Schuylkill River. You can see like 76 and Kelly Drive up here basically are like funneling all this energy of the Schuylkill River down into this birth canal and down this pointer, and funneling this natural energy of the Schuylkill River down into City Hall. Okay, Philadelphia City Hall. Before we even get underway, I just want to point out this. I'm going to at some point read something from this book, Great Mystery Philadelphia by Ross Ben. Someone commented that on the other video. Yeah, definitely check out his stuff. I just want to give credit where credit's due. I don't know when I got that book. A couple years ago, 3-4 years ago. I'm not even sure when it came out. But that was definitely the jumping off point for me. It came out in 2018. So that was definitely the jumping off point for me for a lot of this Ben Franklin Parkway Art Museum stuff. So definitely check that out. I'm going to try not to just like repeat things he's said. The things I'm going to talk about here, as far as I know, aren't directly addressed in his work. But I'm definitely building off what he has already done. So check his stuff out for sure. And some of it probably will be a repeat. But I'll try and avoid that. But basically, this is Logan Square, which is actually a circle. So right off the bat, you have like a squaring the circle thing going on. And this is basically the midway point between the Art Museum and City Hall, the seat of power. The source of power is the river, and it's being channeled into this seat of power, which is City Hall. And you can see it's like a spiral. It clearly indicates a spiral, this bow tie shape. Like, you can see it's showing you a spiral. It's also like an eyeball, obviously. But the traffic is literally forced into a spiral around here, okay? And on one side of the spiral, on the left side, the west side, you have the Franklin Institute. On the east side, you have the Basilica St. Peter and Paul, the Roman Catholic, like red granite, I'm not sure what kind of stone, I think red granite, this big red basilica. So you have like the church and the science, religion and science, like the dialectic, forcing the energy into this spiral collection point in the middle here. And it's called Sister Cities Park. I'll show like a video maybe, but like if you go over here, it's this weird red lights on the ground at night, like park where it says like our sister city is like somewhere in the People's Republic of China for some reason. I don't know. Let me see if I can find a video real quick. Okay, this is Sister City's park at night. These weird red lights on the floor, and there's multiple, but the first one is Tianjin, People's Republic of China. And it has all these crazy lines and concentric circles, like, I guess, representing the geographic points, but it's definitely has some weird, like, magical, occult vibes going on, obviously. Philadelphia is in the center. It's these weird red lights. And this is Sister City's park. And I just want you to remember that in reference to, like, the Franklin Institute on one side and the Roman Catholic, the Vatican building on the other side, like the church and religion and science, this dialectic. That's the Basilica St. Peter and Paul, right in front of it. That's on the other side of this bow tie spiral formation is the Basilica. Okay, and I also want to show, if you look up at the top, you have, so it's Sister Cities, and you have the Shakespeare Memorial and General Galusha Pennypacker Memorial. So I imagine these two memorials as like sister memorials on either side of this Logan Square spiral energy vortex here, with the Science Franklin Institute and the Roman Catholic Church Basilica on the other side, like creating this dialectic to collect energy here. So just keep that in mind. The Shakespeare Memorial and the General Galusha Pennypacker Memorial are sister memorials as well, okay? You're gonna see also, you have the Franklin Institute on one side. Opposite, you have the, look at this, Magdalen Society Cemetery. It's in the Franklin Institute area. You have the Free Library up top. It's not labeled, but the building right next to the Free Library is the Family Court, okay? Behind, then over here you have the Basilica. The Academy of Natural Sciences down the bottom. And also something that's strange is if you look at the bottom of the circle here, you'll see it says Bell Telephone Company Building, which is not true. Like, I'm not doing this live. I already recorded this on my phone, so I can't just zoom around. I have to go with what I already have. But obviously the Bell Telephone Company Building is not in this green park area. Like, it's close by, but it's at like 18th and Arch Street. There's another one at like 17th and the Parkway where it hits Cherry Street. There's multiple Bell Telephone buildings, but none of them are right here, obviously, where it shows it on the map. But to me, even that is like a little clue. Like, okay, the telephone buildings are part of this. Bell Telephone, Ball. We'll call it Ball Telephone. Of this like technology matrix grid, electrical grid of control, right? Which starts with like Ben Franklin with the lightning experiment. I saw Satan fall from heaven as lightning. Like electricity, Ben Franklin discovering electricity. So we'll continue on with this now. And this is very strange. The Magdalen Society Cemetery on the grounds of the Franklin Institute. They just like built over it. It's still kind of open, but you'll see. Okay, now I'm doing a walk around thing. This is the Pennypacker Memorial, General Galusha Pennypacker Memorial, which is right in front of the Family Court building, right? And you'll see that it's like a very Roman fascist, like central authority, like strong Roman federal, like, power, the power of government, like, statue. He's standing on, like, a cannon or some kind of gun turret. He's got 2 lions. He's flanked by lions. That's the Pennypacker, General Pennypacker statue. And then the sister memorial out front of the library. So that's out front of the family court, right? It's like a symbol of, like, the power of central government, of family court, like break your family up and power over your children, like, just like. And then in front of the Free Library, right next to it, the Philadelphia Library, same architect as the art museum, is this Shakespeare memorial, right? Which is, that's in front of the library, okay? So if we go back and look, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. So we have these 2 sister memorials, the Shakespeare Memorial, and I think it's funny that this is the midway point between the Art Museum and City Hall, is this Shakespeare Memorial, which says all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. And this line, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players, is from Shakespeare's play As You Like It. And I just want you to generally remember this motif. The action in Shakespeare's As You Like It shifts between 2 locations: Duke Frederick's court with its pomp, corruption, intrigues, deception, and envy, and the forest Arden, where things are natural, free, and beautiful. So the general motif of this play is like the juxtaposition between the natural world, which is natural, free, and beautiful, and the pomp, corruption, intrigue, deception, and envy of the political court, of the courts and the seats of government and power in the city. Okay, so that's the Shakespeare Memorial. All the world's a stage and we're all the men and women merely players. The sister statue, Sister Cities Park, is the General Galusha Pennypacker Memorial, which is out. So the Shakespeare Memorial is out front of the Art Museum. The General Pennypacker Memorial is out front of the family court. It's a symbol of, like, government power. Clearly a Roman statue. He's depicted as, like, buff-ass dude about to throw a haymaker and break someone's jaw. Just like a symbol of power, central authority, fascism, government authority, power, and it's out front of the family court. Like, can't get much more clear than that. Okay? Look here. The project, it's a sculpture by Albert Lassell, 1877 to 1954. And if you read here, the project was taken over by Albert Lassell, who was already known in Philadelphia for his Billy in Rittenhouse Square and his penguins at the zoo. I want to point out 2 things. Number 1, the penguins, you've probably heard people refer to, like, these people in charge of everything as penguins. At least I have. I'm not really sure why. Maybe because they live in Antarctica and they wear tuxedos all the time. Couldn't really tell you why. But the sculptor of this Galusha, bam, about to throw a haymaker, boom! Roman power, authority. But the dude who made this statue is already known in Philadelphia for his Billy in Rittenhouse Square, which is this famous sculpture of a goat. Okay? In Rittenhouse Square. Billy the goat. And it's like Billy, like William Shakespeare, right? So you have the William Shakespeare Memorial and the Galusha Pennypacker Memorial by Albert Lassell, who's famous for the Billy the goat sculpture. Okay? So you're probably asking yourself, all right, so what are you getting at, Ben? What's the connection between Benjamin Franklin and William Shakespeare and, you know, Billy the Goat and government authority and all this? Well, I'm going to lean on other people's work and read a passage from Ross Ben's book here about Benjamin Franklin. center of the Benjamin Franklin Parkway here. It's on page 142. Ben Franklin is the founder of scientific discovery in the United States, which he did so in Philadelphia by discovering electricity. Considered a founding father of the nation, Franklin obviously fashioned himself in the image of Sir Francis Bacon. Sir Francis Bacon is who? Sir Francis Bacon is William Shakespeare, okay? So this is what ties the whole thing together. Billy the Goat, Galusha Pennypacker Memorial, the Shakespeare Memorial, in the center spiral of the Ben Franklin Parkway between the church and science, the Franklin Institute, is Benjamin Franklin modeled himself after Francis Bacon, who is Shakespeare, okay? William Shakespeare, at least considered to be by a lot of people who have studied the subject, not me. I wouldn't know. I mean, you got to start somewhere. You got to believe someone. I can't start from scratch here, like making up my own numbers and letters and shit. I have to stand on someone's research and thoughts. Franklin obviously fashioned himself in the image of Sir Francis Bacon. Franklin was the nation's premier scientist, author, printer, political theorist, politician, postmaster, musician, inventor, satirist, civic activist, statesman, and diplomat. For Franklin to inherit the entire scientific legacy of the Hermits of the Ridge is significant. His perspectives and achievements in the area of science and invention truly align his life with the vision Bacon projected about Ben Salem in New Atlantis. The Hermits of the Ridge is like a mystical, religious, spiritual order of Johann Kelp, who was very influential in forming the early colonial thought and everything. They had influences on George Washington, and they lived in the Wissahickon caves. And there's a place you can visit still that was like Johann Kelp's cave. So Benjamin Franklin modeled himself after Francis Bacon, William Shakespeare. So we have the Shakespeare Memorial here in Logan Circle, the energy vortex spiral, which says all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. Okay, so we'll continue on our tour here. That's the library. I should have seen if you could look up, because there's swastikas all along the front of the library too, up high. Where are we going to now? Oh yeah, okay. So that's behind the Shakespeare Memorial. Then this is the Roman fascist government power memorial, and it's backed up by this building, which is the family court. Okay, I think I'm going to zoom in on it, so hopefully you can see the plaque. So the family court behind the Galusha Pennypacker Roman statue. It's like the symbol of government power is the family court building. And the symbol of the arts is the library, obviously. Also the art museum, but... And then right here you have the Mormon temple, also on the corner here. The Philadelphia... Yeah, Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, Philadelphia. Which, if you've been investigating conspiracy stuff for any length of time, you know that the Mormon Church, at least in my research, seems to tie in very heavily to this whole thing. So that's the spiral you have here. The Roman Catholic Basilica, St. Peter and Paul, the dialectic with the Franklin Institute, literally focusing traffic in this spiral, and the all the world's a stage memorial at the midway point of the art museum and city hall. Right in the middle you have this. It's called Sister Cities Park, and it's Logan Square, but it's really a circle. And like I said, it seems to be funneling this natural energy from Schuylkill River, like funneling that down into the city, into City Hall, into the seat of power down there. I'll do another thing. I'm gonna do multiple of these videos, but if you can see, I want to show one Copernicus triangle. Oh, fuck. Yeah, okay. You see in the bottom right-hand corner? Here, the bottom right-hand corner off of the green spiral, it says Copernicus triangle. I don't have it in this thing. I don't know if I can show it, but it's like a big statue of Saturn right there. Just mention that at this point. Why not? Okay, then of course we have the Franklin Institute. And inside the Franklin Institute is this giant 20-foot tall seated statue of Benjamin Franklin. Very similar to like the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Where, I forget who that statue's of. Then you have Aviator Park across the street, which makes me think of Howard Hughes. I'll do a whole other video on Howard Hughes. I've used clips from that movie, The Aviator, before. But, it's all tied in with aviation, right? Like, and the sky, and the stars, telescopes, rockets, and all this type of stuff. And they're all similar buildings, obviously. It's a Roman temple, literally, to Benjamin Franklin. You have this giant, gargantuan statue, like the statues of the Greek and Roman gods of Benjamin Franklin in here. And I'm doing this look around, going around the corner here, because what I basically want to talk about is I want to look at this cemetery of the Society of the Magdalen, okay? Which, like, Howdy McCoskey has talked about in his books, and it's a whole thing. And to me, the Society of the... This is it. This is where the cemetery is right here. You see this thing? It's the lunar lander. So basically, to me, Mary Magdalene and all the Magdalene stuff, to me, I don't know what it represents. I'm not involved in any societies of anything. But to me, it just seems to represent, like, mystery. Like, even just in the regular gospel, if you're not into... But then there's all that stuff, like Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and Dan Brown, and the Da Vinci Code and stuff. It's all about Mary Magdalene. And I don't know about any of that stuff, but even just from a regular gospel reading, it's always kind of mysterious what exactly Mary Magdalene's role is and what's going on. So to me, the Magdalene just kind of represents mystery. And you can see they took over this cemetery of the Society of the Magdalene, and they put this, there's all I can really see in here. I'm gonna have to go look closer in person. Maybe you can see more, but basically all you can see is this fake lunar lander thing, which looks much more sturdy than the real lunar lander, if there is a real lunar lander, and this giant Goodyear tire in the background. This is what they put over top of this cemetery of the Society of the Magdalene, which I feel like just generally represents mystery, but it could also obviously represent like hoax, you know what I mean? Like the whole Dan Brown thing, Holy Blood, Holy Grail thing, it could just represent like hoax. Because you have the lunar lander, you see? Magdalen Society Cemetery. You see that there, right? That is what you're looking at with the with the lunar. That's where they put the lunar land. They covered this cemetery with the lunar lander and this giant Goodyear tire. And the giant Goodyear tire makes me think of a couple things. Number one, it makes me think of, you see it right there? Number one, it makes me think of the Goodyear blimp, like full of hot air. The blimp. Makes me think of the Zeppelin. Like, I forget what it's called, but I'm going to get into it. The Zeppelin, like, where Hitler would have his Nuremberg rallies, is the big Third Reich building. It's called, like, the Zeppelin something, where he would have these crazy torchlight nighttime rallies. It's called the Zeppelin something. Anyway, the Goodyear blimp full of hot air. It also is just a giant tire. It looks like an earth mover, some giant machine, which makes me think of, I guess they would say like taming the natural environment, but I think of like the Shakespeare thing and As You Like It, like the juxtaposition between the beauty of the natural world and like the intrigue and deception and envy of like these seats of power in the courts of the government power. And when I see this giant earth mover tire, you know, okay, I'll get into it. But the art museum, to me, someone sent me this in an email, and I do agree about the Altar of Pergamon, or Pergamon. So if you look at this Altar of Pergamon, it's one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world, and it's the same layout as the art museum. The east-facing front of the art museum, the 2 wings coming out, the big central steps, it's obviously the same pattern as the art museum. And this, in the ancient world, the altar of Zeus, the altar of Pergamon, is referenced in Revelation as literally the throne of Satan, okay? And that seems to be like the model for the art museum. The Pergamon altar. Bit Peacock sent me this in an email. There was also like an Obama thing in the Obama campaign era where they built his stage to look like this. But this is a famous thing in the ancient world. Is the Pergamon altar is a monumental construction built during the reign of the ancient king Eumenes II in the first half of the 2nd century BC on one of the terraces of the Acropolis of Pergamon in Asia Minor. This is the throne of Satan, it's called in the Bible, which is the same model as the art museum. The base is decorated with a frieze in high relief showing the battle between the giants and the Olympian gods, known as the Gigantomachy. There is a second, smaller, and less well-preserved blah, 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 blah. What am I trying to get to here? It's similar to, you know, how we have these giant statues like the Roman gods of like Benjamin Franklin and Lincoln and George Washington. They're like our Roman gods. In 1878, the German engineer Karl Humann started excavations. Basically, in Berlin, Italian restorers reassembled the panels. They reassembled this whole Altar of Pergamon in Berlin, okay? In like 1930, right before Hitler comes to power. And it's open to the public, home to a variety of collections. For example, a famous reconstruction of the Ishtar Gate of ancient Babylon is in the same museum, the Pergamon Museum, where they moved stone by stone this throne of Satan, Altar of Pergamon, they uncovered and reassembled in Berlin, okay? Okay, right here on Wikipedia, we have, citing the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verses 12 and 13 in the Christian Bible, many scholars have argued that the Pergamon altar is the seat of Satan, mentioned by John the Apostle in his letter to the church at Pergamon. You can't make this stuff up. This whole section is extremely odd. Some of the media and population criticized the use of the Pergamon altar as a backdrop for the application submitted by the city of Berlin to host the Olympic Summer Games in 2000. The Senate of Berlin had invited members of the IOC Executive Committee to a banquet taking place in front of the altar, which is the throne of Satan, that called to mind Berlin's application to host the Games in 1936. Also at that time, the Nazi Minister of the Interior, Wilhelm Frick, had invited the members of the IOC to a banquet laid out in front of the altar. In 2013, the Pergamon Second Life Project, a fictional, artistically inspired photographic reconstruction of the Gigantomachy frieze, Gigantomancy Frieze celebrated its public world premiere in the Pushkin State Museum of Fine Arts in Moscow. Second Life, like, you know, where you live a fake life on the internet. In August 2020, while the Pergamon Museum was still closed because of the COVID-19 pandemic, Attila Hildmann described the altar as being the center of global Satanists and corona criminals. I don't know why this is on Wikipedia or what that means or who that is. But anyway, I find it very interesting. In October of the same year, it was discovered several pieces in the museum were damaged while it was closed. Okay, and check this out. So they shipped the real Altar of Pergamon, Throne of Satan, to Berlin in the Pergamon Museum. Then look at this. The famous Nuremberg rallies at the parade grounds, which is called the Zeppelin Field Grandstand, the Zeppelin Tribune. Architect Albert Speer modeled the grandstand where if Hitler would give his famous speeches. Architect Albert Speer modeled the grandstand after the ancient Pergamon altar. You cannot make this stuff up. The National Socialists used this area for their party rallies from 1933 onward. The central venue for these events was the Zeppelin Field, which got its name after one of Count Zeppelin's airships landing there in 1909. But you see, this also reminds me of like Goodyear, the Goodyear blimp, how they have it in the Magdalen Cemetery. I know this is hard to like put this all together here, but the Goodyear blimp, the Zeppelin Field Grandstand, the Altar of Pergamon. And basically, if I go back to just the Altar of Pergamon, you look at the pictures of this, the Zeppelin Grandstand, which they say is based off it, Pergamon altar. You look at this thing, Pergamon altar, and the pictures of it, this general shape, right? This general shape of the two wings of colonnades coming out in the giant staircase. And then you look at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, it's clearly also, and it's built around the same time, right? And it's covered in swastikas. Like I said before, owls and swastikas, and it's clearly this exact same plan. Like if I can get an above from the top like view of this, you can see it's very similar. It's the same exact layout, like with the two wings of colonnades. At the head of the Ben Franklin Parkway is this Altar of Pergamon, Throne of Satan shape, right? I took my own pictures of this giant sculpture of power. You get it? Like it's plugging in. This is where the power plugs in to the Schuylkill River, like I showed, and channels it down to City Hall. I know this might seem like wacky to people, but here, in this picture, you can even see the swastikas on the ground. So this is this Altar of Pergamon model, just like the Zeppelin Field for the Nuremberg rallies. It's all the same design. Okay? I'm having trouble myself keeping this all straight and tying it all together. But then you have the Magdalen Society Cemetery, okay? Which I said I think just represents like mystery, but also possibly hoax. And you have this lunar lander here. The lunar lander and this giant Goodyear tire, right? And there's one aspect where, like, yeah, I do find it, you go back to the thing I was showing with As You Like It, with the juxtaposition between the natural world and the intrigue, deception, envy of the courts. And in a way, like, yes, these structures are very impressive, but I think more in like a morbid way. Like I told you, I get a serious Ghostbusters vibe from the art museum and all of it. And they're all modeled after these ancient temples. And it's kind of like maybe those were all destroyed and in ruins for a reason. Like, it's this whole Masonic thing of like Tubal-Cain and the aprons, and Cain went and built the first cities. And building these giant structures that are so imposing that they actually change the whole look and feel of the natural landscape. Like, that's what the art museum does, of the whole Schuylkill River and Fairmount area. And it just seems to go directly against, like, the biblical stuff about don't make temples of hewn stone. Like, you're supposed to just work in the Old Testament, like, just worship before Solomon's temple. They were just supposed to worship, like, in tents in the desert and, like, in temples of unhewn stone. And the whole thing just seems like a defiance of, like, that natural sort of celebration viewpoint, you know, where, like, you worship just like in temples of unhewn stone and tents in nature, or rocks, unhewn stone, not these giant megalithic stone masonry structures, which, like, totally destroy the natural beauty. And, like, whereas the temples of unhewn stone, just nature, is like a monument to, you know, life, creation, just creative force and life, nature, energy. Like, these are impressive in, like, a morbid sense. They're like temples of death. They're like impressive, but they're like always like mausoleums, you know, of whoever these Roman gods or whoever these men are, and that want to be enshrined forever. It seems more like a monument to death. These temples of hewn stone everywhere. And there's definitely a thing, like, with the telephone buildings, I'll get into in another video, but in the world being a stage, this is at the center point of the Ben Franklin Parkway, and it's like stealing this natural energy from the natural world and funneling it into these seats of power, like, into the City Hall building. These massive masonry structures. And if you read Ross Ben's stuff, it's like Fairmount was like the biggest mount, like Native American high place, you know, the mounds. It was like the biggest mound around there. And they took it over and put the waterworks there originally to take the power of the river. And then later they put the art museum there. And the whole thing is definitely some kind of, some kind of like magical working, where the city, you know, whether you want to imagine it as like a circuit board or geomancy, or however you want to think of it, somehow this is a thing with these statues and the shapes and the way they make people move and drive through them, and the way we use cars, and the subjugation of the river and the natural world, and it is obviously a magical working, some kind of thing we don't understand, and is not presented to the public. Like, maybe if you are involved in some kind of masonry or Rosicrucianism at a certain level, I mean, this probably is well known and taught and discussed, and there probably is tons of stuff written about it and explaining it. But for normal people, none of this is ever explained or addressed or, like, pointed out to anyone, the way they're using this energy. But the Magdalen Society Cemetery, that'll be the last thing I do. We'll look at this real quick. The Magdalen Society Cemetery, where they put the lunar lander and the big Goodyear blimp earth mover tire on top of the Magdalen Society Cemetery. We'll look this up real quick just to see what it is. And then that'll be the last thing. I'll stop this video. Okay, so the Magdalen Society Cemetery, which the Franklin Institute just put this weird thing over, just totally bulldozed over. Which also makes me think there's a whole thing, I'm not going to get into this, but with Ben Franklin finding all these skeletons in his basement, supposedly, like Ben Franklin, whether he was a serial killer or conducting medical experiments or whatever, it sort of brings that to mind. There's the bodies of all these prostitutes on the grounds of the Franklin Institute. Like, what is going on with this? The Magdalen Society of Philadelphia. The Magdalen Society of Philadelphia was a private charitable organization founded in 1800 to redeem prostitutes and other fallen women. This was the first association in the United States that sought to rescue and reform wayward women. A number of local clergymen and citizens affiliated with Quaker, Episcopal, and Presbyterian denominations meant to form the society. Bishop William White, the nation's highest-ranking Episcopal bishop, was the first president of the society, which officially incorporated in 1802. The organization was based on Magdalen hospitals in England and Ireland, which were named for Mary Magdalene. Similarly designated groups were soon started in other American cities in the early 19th century. It's interesting, too. It's headed by William White. Like the foremost, religious figure in America. I don't think I don't know if he's related to the actual White House in D.C. or not. I guess he's probably not. But yeah, look at this. Bishop White House. His home at 309 Walnut Street in Philadelphia today is part of the Independence National Historical Park. It is notable in part as one of the first houses to have an indoor necessary. It's a bathroom, I assume. It is a bathroom. A second White House is located in Old Mill Lane. So his houses are called the White House, which I find interesting. I don't know if it has anything to do with the White House or not, the actual White House or not. We'll get into that another day. We'll just stay with this for now. The Magdalen Society of Philadelphia. The Magdalen Society of Philadelphia was a private charitable organization. Was founded in 1807. The stated purpose of Philadelphia's Magdalen Society was restoring to the paths of virtue those unhappy females who in unguarded hours have been robbed of their innocence. The president of the society was Bishop William White, rector of Christ Church. The vice president was Robert Wharton, like Wharton School of Business, mayor of Philadelphia. To accomplish its mission, the society in 1808 opened the Magdalen Asylum on the northeast corner of Schuylkill 2nd, now 21st and Ray Streets. It was operated by the society's board of managers and initially housed about a dozen prostitutes and other errant women. That's it? 12 women? Like the 12 apostles, or what? The Magdalen Asylum stood on this site for more than a century, until 1916. In 1988 to 1898, must be 1888 to 1898. That must be a mistake right there. An archaeological investigation of the site was conducted in connection... No, it must be 1988 to 1998. One of these... Yeah, that must be it. An archaeological investigation of the site was conducted in connection with the construction of the Franklin Institute's Future Center, which now overlaps the site. The women that the asylum admitted were called Magdalens and were assigned a number in the order that they entered the facility. You don't have a name anymore, Magdalens. You're just numbers now. You are Magdalene 1. You are Magdalene 2. We will tattoo your numbers on your wrists, and we will bury you in the backyard. And then on the ground, 150 years later, we will erect the temple to Benjamin Franklin over your graves. There are mostly young immigrant women between the ages of 17 and 23 who are aimless, familyless, unsupported, and in need of help. They generally did not share the Magdalen Society image of their guilt and wretchedness, but instead simply sought a sanctuary from disease, the prison, or the almshouse. Unhappy family situations, abuse of men, and dire economic circumstances. Okay, I'm going to pause and find the part about the cemetery. Okay, on my phone, I'm always on DuckDuckGo. On my computer, is on Google. And I literally had to switch to DuckDuckGo because this would just not show up on Google no matter what. And I couldn't find the link. But here, this is all I wanted to show. Magdalen Society Cemetery, Philadelphia. Located at the corner of Race and Schuylkill, 2nd, currently 21st Street, Philadelphia. The Magdalen Society of Philadelphia, founded in 1800, was formed to rescue and reform fallen women. Was the first organized of its kind in the United States. Women who died while at the facility and who had no family were buried on the grounds. Okay? And this is literally, they built the Franklin Institute on top of this cemetery, the Magdalen Society Cemetery. So when you walk around, you see the lunar lander and the Goodyear tire out there. That's just on the graves of these prostitutes, apparently. I'm actually not going to end it quite yet. I'm going to try and do a super quick run just through the Franklin Institute Wikipedia. Founded in 1824, the Franklin Institute is one of the oldest centers of science education and development in the United States history. 1824, Franklin Institute of the State of Pennsylvania for Promotion of the Mechanic Arts. Begun in 1825, the Institute was an important force in the professionalization of American science and technology, beginning with early investigations into steam engines and water power. The Franklin Institute's original building is the Philadelphia History Museum. The new building was built at the same time as the Art Museum. All these buildings were built at the same time. The Institute moved into its current home in the Benjamin Franklin Parkway in 1934. Get off there. The original design was a completely square building surrounding the Benjamin Franklin statue, which had yet to be built. It's this enormous statue. Look at this. What is this? Let's look at this. This is insanity. On March 31st, 1940, press agent William Castellini, this is the official press agent of the Franklin Institute, okay? This is their official representative. On March 31st, 1940, press agent William Castellini issued a press release stating that the world would end the next day. The story was picked up by KYW, which reported, "Your worst fears that the world will end are confirmed by astronomers of Franklin Institute, Philadelphia." This is an official press release they put out. "Scientists predict that the world will end at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. This is no April Fool's joke. Confirmation can be obtained from Wagner Schlesinger, director of the Fels Planetarium of this city. This caused a panic in the city, which only subsided when the Franklin Institute assured people it had made no such prediction. Castellini was dismissed shortly thereafter." What? What is that about? That is the craziest thing I've seen since I've been on here. His next thing is great also. On December 21st, 2017, so this is on the winter solstice, during a party hosted by the museum, a partygoer with his companion slipped into a closed-off exhibit of 10 terracotta warriors on loan from China. Okay? Listen to this. After his companions left... Why does it keep doing this? After his companions left, the partygoer broke off and stole a thumb from one of the warriors. Law enforcement agents later recovered the stolen thumb. The vandalized cavalryman is valued at $4.5 million and is considered a priceless part of China's cultural heritage. The vandalism stoked outrage in Chinese media, such as Xinhua. Oh, our sister city. We've provoked outrage in our sister city in the People's Republic of China. The Franklin Institute blamed its external security contractor and stated it has reviewed its security measures and procedures to prevent such situations from reoccurring. The defendant was charged both with theft and with concealment of an item of cultural heritage. The defense argued that the defendant was being overcharged under statutes applicable to professional art thieves. An April 2019 trial ended in a hung jury. So this guy never got convicted of breaking the thumb off the Chinese ancient terracotta warriors and stealing it. With 7 of the 12 jurors in favor of acquittal. It's pretty good. I'd take that. A February 2020 retrial was postponed due to travel restrictions related to the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2021, the Institute housed the work of Diamond Whipper Young as she broke the Guinness World Record for the largest drawing of an individual. Why is that in this same paragraph? Anyway, look, so during a party on the solstice right before the pandemic, right? Two years before the pandemic, a party hosted by the museum, a party goer slipped into a closed-off exhibit of 10 terracotta warriors on loan from China. After his companions left, the partygoer broke off and stole a thumb of one of the warriors. And maybe I'm just being like overly reading into things overly much, but it's like this is what I read, right? He broke off and stole, this is right before the pandemic, he broke off and stole one of the thumbs of the terracotta warriors. And to me, it's this symbolism of like, hey, these guys did it. China. The China guys did it. Like the thumb, you know what I mean? Like if you're ever like with a group of people and the police are like, who did it? Who urinated on the door handle? You're like, oh, we don't know who did it. But like one guy's like, this guy. They're like, who stole the thumb? Who started the pandemic? And it's like the thumb, like, this guy. You're like motioning with your head. You're like, this guy. He broke off the thumb of the Chinese warrior. I don't know. That's, maybe I'm reading into things too much. That's just what I was getting out of it. That's just what I was reading into it. I'm just going to look at here some of the permanent exhibits. Just extremely bizarre. Hope you can see this. Can you see this? Yeah, you can see it over my picture. Electricity, which replaced Franklin. He's electric in 2010. A sustainable dance floor and an array of LEDs that turn on in the presence of cell phone signals and other low-power electrical signals. This one, Changing Earth. Okay? The Franklin Air Show. It's all about aviation. Aviators Park is across the street. Featuring a T-33 Shooting Star jet trainer. Okay, so it's like, you know, obviously the 33, the T-33 Shooting Star, like the falling star, the third of the angels that fell from heaven, third of the stars falling from heaven. I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning. Ben Franklin with the lightning, discovering electricity. It's like a whole thing they got going on here with the symbolism. How much of this really happened and how much of this is like just some kind of reality play or just a story? I have no idea. Look at this one. Space Command features real spacesuits, and allows visitors to track their houses in real time via satellite. How fucking freaky is that? That's what you bring kids to do at the Franklin Institute. Hey, look, kids, just remember, we can always look into your house, track your house in real time, all the time via satellite. We're always watching you. Look, you can watch your own house by satellite right now. Maybe you can see what your mom and dad are doing through the window while you're at the Franklin Institute. Isn't that neat? Amazing Machine allows visitors to experience a machine-like environment, featuring little-seen pieces from the Franklin Institute's priceless collection, including Maillardet's Automaton. Allows children to experience a machine-like environment with early automatons. That's great. The Your Brain permanent exhibit explores the physiology and neurology of our most remarkable organ. The exhibit includes an 18-foot tall, 6 plus 6 plus 6 foot tall lucky climber. Climbing structure that simulates neural pathways sending messages, and an area to discuss questions of neuroscience ethics. Like, let's discuss the ethics of meddling in people's neurons and mind control. Let's discuss the ethics of mind control here. A mock-up which would eventually become the lunar module in the Apollo space program, first shown on display in the 1966 World's Fair, held in the New York Hall of Sciences, is also located on the grounds. This is what's on top of the Magdalen Society cemetery. Is the mock-up of the lunar lander. The lunar mock. Traveling exhibits. In the summer of 2007, the Franklin Institute hosted Tutankhamun and the Golden Age of the Pharaohs. Other traveling exhibits: Storms, Titanic, Grossology, Body Worlds, Darwin, and Robots. It's just, they got it all covered, right? Darwin, Robots, Titanic, like the Titans. You know, that's him. Look at this dude. He's one of the Titans. This 20-foot tall gigantomancy statue there. And then this huge King Tut exhibit. You see, they have it all laid out front. King Tut, like, hanging up in front of the giant statue of Ben Franklin. This exhibit was nearly twice the size of the original Tutankhamun exhibit of the 1970s and contained 50 objects directly from Tut's tomb, as well as nearly 70 objects from the tombs of his ancestors in the Valley of the Kings. So this is like his tomb, you know, the temple to Benjamin Franklin. They're displaying all the King Tut and the Valley of the Kings stuff. Benjamin Franklin National Memorial features a 20-foot high marble statue. It's humongous. Originally opened in 1938, the memorial was designed by architect John Wyndham and modeled after the Pantheon in Rome. There, they tell you right there. There you have it. It's the new Pantheon, is these guys. Benjamin Franklin and Washington and Lincoln and whatnot. The domed ceiling is self-supporting and weighs 1,600 tons. The memorial was dedicated by Vice President Nelson Rockefeller in 1976. It's amazing. I think that's pretty much it. And this thing, the focal pendulum staircase is the centerpiece of the museum. Which I vaguely remember this, and it's supposed to demonstrate, I guess, the rotation of the Earth. I don't know. I don't really know enough about it to comment on it. But I think that's it for this video. We'll wrap it up there. That'll be video 1 on the Ben Franklin Parkway. Hope that wasn't too painful. Hope that was interesting.